Good afternoon, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video. It's been at least 3 or 4 days. It is January the 23rd, 2025. It's 1:24 in the afternoon here in the Hermit Hut. My wife just left to take a elderly lady to an appointment. It is, if you look at the weather nationwide, we had about 8 inches of snow yesterday, and it's still snowing. And we've had 6-degree weather, 5-degree weather, freezing, bitter cold, Arctic blast. And so, but my wife and I were thankful. We have a furnace that works, keeps our little hermit hut warm during this very cold winter weather here in Southwest Michigan. So I thought I'd make a video. It is a Thursday, and I would just show you what I've been reading lately. I got some new books that came in the mail. I'm supposed to get a book in the mail maybe today, some theological book by Richard Muller. But I thought I would wait and make the video later. But since my wife is gone and I'm sitting here by my lonesome, writing in my diary, my paper diary, as you all know, I'm on page 76 for the year 2025, here on January the 23rd, 2025. And I've been reading, well, first of all, I'll show you the new books I got this week. I got this book in the mail. It's self-published. It's called Following the Columban, a Pilgrim's 4,000-mile quest for monks, meaning and the meaning of monks, by Johannes M. Schwarz. Johannes M. Schwarz, he has a YouTube channel. And he is a monk or a priest, and he half the year, or when he can, he lives in a stone house in the Italian Alps, and he goes there. It's like a hermitage. He goes there, and he knows carpentry, and he knows gardening, and he's like a Renaissance man. He speaks several languages. He writes books. He lectures. He goes on retreat. He gives retreats, and then when he can, he spends time at his cabin or house in the Alps, and he has gardens. And he built onto his house a chapel, so he maintains his monastic duties or priestly duties, but it's all online. And I've been watching him for over almost a year, and then he was gone for 6 months, and now he has just videos where he talks about spirituality. But he mentioned this book that he'd been writing and just been translated. First he wrote it in Italian and just been translated into English, and so I've been reading it because I've been following him for almost 2 years now and watching his YouTube. It comes on Sundays, I think. It's only about maybe 35-40 minutes, and sometimes the videos show him working on his property. He has hot houses, and he's built these gardens on terraces. And he's always repairing or building or doing something, and then he's gone. But anyway, I've been reading this. And then I got this book in the mail. I came across it, and this writer, Greg Peters, and he's written other books. Greg Peters, this is Reforming the Monastery, Protestant Theologies of the Religious Life by Greg Peters. Greg Peters, it says on the back here, is Associate Professor of Medieval and Spiritual Theology in the Torrey Honors Institute of Biola University. He's also visiting Assistant Professor of Church History at Nash Atoll House Theological Seminary in Wisconsin, and is a visiting Professor of Monastic Studies at St. John's School of Theology in Collegeville, Minnesota. He is author of Peter of Damascus, Byzantine Monk, and Spiritual Theologies. So I got this because I was see what Protestants have said about monasticism, and he goes into. I just got into the introduction. The first chapter is like the Protestant reformers and how they looked at monasticism. And then I got a book that I had pre-ordered. I pre-ordered the New York Review Books Classics, and this is a pre-order, and I got it in the mail the other day. It's the Uncollected Stories of Mavis, Gallant, or Mavis. Over the years, I've bought 3 other volumes of her short stories in the New York Review Books Classics Originals, and I showed you last year. I went to a used book sale in South Haven, and I found used the collected stories of Mavis Gallant, and I read almost at 275 pages, just reading short. Sometimes I get in the mood to read short stories, and I'll get a volume like this out, and I'll read it for a week. Short stories. I don't know how many short stories I read in here. Some were short, some were long, and I'll read it short stories for a while. But I really enjoyed her short stories last year. I don't know any other short story collection I read from last year. I can't remember, but I have been reading her short stories for a number of years, and I've always enjoyed them. And I first found out about her because she wrote for the New Yorker magazine. She, as it says, the introduction to this, when I was reading last night, the introduction to this, that she wrote over 150 short stories for the New Yorker. Well, more short stories than John Cheever and John Updike, which I didn't know. I also, when I got the collected stories of Mavis Gallant, I found out that her nonfiction, I bought this and I was reading it, Mavis Paris Notebooks, essays and reviews, and I was reading this last year. There's a long one about her Paris note. See, what she did, she was Canadian, and she wrote for a newspaper in Montreal, and then she decided she would devote her life to writing. And she moved to Paris, where she lived the rest of her life. I think that was back in the 50s. And she just wrote short stories. And I didn't know much about her life. I looked for biographies, and I couldn't really find anything. There are YouTube videos of her being interviewed when she was older. You can see a picture of her here. She's older here. See? And this is when she was younger. And so, yeah, I got this, and I was reading the Paris Notebooks. It's about the 1960s student uprisings in Paris, France. And yeah, so I get all her writings if I can find it. Maybe somebody will do a biography of her. I got this novel last year, and I don't think I showed it. Somebody showed this on a YouTube, BookTube channel. This writer I never heard of, and I ordered it because I Dalkey Archive Press. I collect, and this woman writer had this novel on there. They published it. Her name was Violette. I can't pronounce. She was French. This is translated by Derek Coltman, and it's Le Bastard. What's called The Bastard. It's. I haven't really gotten into it. I just got it because I collect Dalkey Archive Press, and I just got it for my collection. So those are the new books that I have gotten recently. Reforming Monasticism, Protestant Theologies, A Religious Life by Greg Peters. He has other books that I plan to look at on monasticism. And then I got this. I was reading this last couple of nights about his pilgrimage from Ireland to Rome, I think it is. Anyway, self-published. I am still reading Natural History by Carlos Fonseca. I really recommend this. I find it very unusual, not in a very good way. Very interesting, the story, the characters. Throughout this novel, there are like reflections on art, literature, bohemian life in Puerto Rico, things like that. I mean, he brings in all kinds of things. The history of photography, history of South American writers, Mexican, Puerto Rican, things like that. It's just, I really have been enjoying reading it. I'm almost finished with it. I've read about 185 pages, and it's around 303 pages, so I'm almost halfway through it. This is translated by Megan McDowell, who's translated a lot of South American writers from Spanish into English. She's a very prominent translator, Megan McDowell. There's a video of her on YouTube, Megan McDowell and Carlos Fonseca talking about natural history and discussing it. So I've been reading that, and this morning I read for Devotions Sacred Meditations by Johannes Gerhardt. Still reading this. As I told you, I'm still feeling better these days. It's kind of like you don't want to say something because you might. Sometimes you think, well, if I say I'm feeling better, then something bad's going to happen, or you're just crossing your fingers. That you don't want to sabotage. You don't want to get too secure. I don't know what the word is, but I have been feeling better. But I'm always kind of like waiting for something bad to happen. I don't know, but I have been feeling somewhat better, which I'm thankful for. But I've been reading Sacred Meditations by Johannes Gerhardt, and I was reading this morning Johannes Tollard Sermons and the Classics of Western Spirituality. This was translated by Maria Sherry, and I really enjoyed reading this morning. Yesterday I read some more of Bernard McGinn, Mysticism and the Reformation, 1500 to 1650, Part 1. This is Volume 6 in the series The Presence of God. Now, Volume 6, you notice up here there's Part 1. there's a volume called Part 2, and there's a volume Part 3, and then the last volume is called The Crisis of Mysticism, Volume 7, and I can't get it. Yes, the other day I looked all over the country, all over the world for Volume 7, The Crisis of Mysticism by Bernard McGinn in the series The Presence of God, The History of Western Christian. I can't find it. There's one used copy on Amazon. It says it's damaged, it's been marked up, it has notes in it. I even called a bookstore in Chicago because they had it on their website, and she said no, it's out of stock, it's not available. It's not available anywhere. Well, I know there's copies out there somewhere. So if anybody sees Volume 7 of The Presence of God, Volume 6, The History of Western Christian Spirituality, tell me. Put a note below my video and say, yeah, I know where you can get a copy of this. Now they go for $75 to up to $100. Now I didn't pay that much. I think I paid, I don't know, $60 a volume, which is, to me, is a lot of money. But some go for $45, $50. So I read this yesterday, Mysticism, Reformation, 1500 to 1650, Part 1. Then there's Volume 6, Part 2, Volume 6, Part 3. 2 other volumes, and then The Crisis of Mysticism. And then I've been reading Irresistible Beauty, Beholding the Triune Glory in the Face of Jesus Christ by Samuel J. Parkinson. He has a new book coming out at the end of this month or next month, or maybe it's March, that I will show in the future. Really enjoying this. Highly recommend it. Beholding the Triune Glory in the Face of Jesus Christ. I'm almost finished with Light Unapproachable, Divine Incomprehensibility and the Task of Theology by Ronni Kurtz. I highly recommend this. Yeah, I only got 4 pages left in this. A really great book. I really enjoyed reading it and was blessed spiritually. So highly recommend it. This afternoon I've been reading Angela of Foligno, Complete Works. I'm reading the introduction. I told you, I really like this series, The Classics of Western Spirituality, because of the introductions. They're just excellent. I've always learned so much from the introductions, and plus also the bibliographies and the footnotes, and they're just a great resource. Like if you're going to read the history of Western Christian mysticism, it's good to have the text. Now, in the Classics of Western Spirituality, the general editor is Bernard McGinn. He's the editor-in-chief. Bernard McGinn, professor of historical theology and the history of Christianity, Divinity School, University of Chicago, Illinois. So he is the editor-in-chief of this series. Yeah. They're excellent. So I've been reading the introduction, which is they're almost like 120 pages, the introduction to this. So I'm reading this afternoon, and then I'll probably read Reformation, Mysticism, Reformation, 1500, 1650. Then usually I read fiction at night, natural history. I told my wife this morning, I like to get this in hardback with decal edges. It's probably become one of my favorite books. Well, I wouldn't get rid of it. I do recommend it. So in this, following the Columban, he's following a trail. It says here in the back, millions of sheep live in Ireland and the 8 other countries that the Viva Columban pilgrimage route traverses in the footsteps of the Irish monks, and in the summer of 2022, it felt like most of them went staring and beating, like, making sounds, sheep sounds. Johannes Maria Schwarz, walking from Ireland to Italy. The 44-year-old Catholic priest had recently been to Santiago, Rome, and Jerusalem on foot. He had visited 200 of the highest and oldest and most curious shrines in the Alps. On the 19,000 miles of his pilgrimage, he has fled from Romanian sheepdogs, fought and lost against Ukrainian mosquitoes, survived bull runs from someplace in Italy, decisively rebuked slugs, and thanks to the present book, is known to have lively conversations with countless rams, sheep. On this new European pilgrimage route called the Columban Way, or the Viva Columban, Schwarz followed in the footsteps of the Irish monk Saint Columban and his 12 companions, who in the year 590 embarked for the mainland to win half a continent back to faith and reason in the chaos following the migration period. So yeah, as you read this, he talks about his pilgrimage, and as he's going along, he intersperses historical things about history of that time period, medieval history, current history, the Irish and the Catholics and the Protestants there in Britain, and he brings in about monasticism, about monastic life and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. This I haven't really gotten much into yet, Reforming the Monastery, Protestant Theologies and Religious Life by Greg Peters. So that's what I'm reading in the mornings. My wife and I were reading through the Gospels. We're in the Gospel of Luke. We went through the New Testament last year, and now we're going through it again. Now we're in the Gospels. We're in the Gospel of Luke and reading the Valley of Vision, a collection of Puritan prayers and devotions, and reading the book of Psalms. So that's it. Yeah, really enjoying reading Sacred Meditations, John Toller's sermons, translated out by Maria Sherade. So that's what's going on here. Like I said, due to the weather, I'm kind of housebound. I don't really go anywhere until the weather gets clear. Writing in my diary, praying, just going through the days. So I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all having a good reading week. We're coming to the end of this month, going into February. Yeah, time just keeps going by. Not much else to talk about. So yeah, I do look at this book too, The Garden of Paradise, which are prayers, The Garden of Paradise, or Holy Prayers and Exercises by John Arnott, who lived in the 16th century there in Europe. So I read these prayers too. So I'll sign off. Once again, thank you for your comments. Yeah, and if you do come across volume 7 of The Presence of God, The Crisis of Mysticism, drop me a note. I haven't been able to find it. So it could be somewhere that you might know that I don't know. So once again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comments. Do pray you're all doing well. Stay warm. Stay safe. And until next time, May the Lord bless. Bye.